So the beginning of the year itself, in fact January of this year, is when I got this really jolting news. I was in my Chikkabalapur ashram, and what had happened is 2 of my very close friends all of a sudden disappeared, and I was actually very much in touch with them at that point of time, and all of a sudden both of them were out of touch. They were somewhere, and I found out that one of them had got cancer, and so he was totally undergoing the treatments and kind of in his own zone because of that. And the second friend basically just disappeared out of nowhere. I guess all the signs were there, but I just did not add up, because when you have a friend, you also just assume certain things will be a certain way. So when the person just absolutely disappeared, I was so shocked. So that time itself, I was actually thinking that do I have my Shani Sadesati or something going on, because one of the aspects about Shani is when that Shani dasha they call, when that happens is, which I read in the Agora trilogy by Robert Svoboda. So in those books I had read that one of the salient aspect is that your chhatris, your protection forces, it could be the adults in your family, it could be friends like these, or it could be a very good manager or boss at work. All of a sudden those protection forces just disappear. And that for you is the tough time, because all of a sudden you are left there without those people who you had just been depending on. In a lot of ways you may not even have realized, and all of a sudden they are gone and you are there dealing with it. So I had actually pondered, is it my Shani thing going on or something? Did that just start? Why did these 2 people at the same time disappear like this? And so because of that, I really want to just do this little piece on the year of Shani that just went by. Namaskar everyone. So I wanted to shoot this video at the end of 2024. I specifically wanted to shoot this is because just in the last few months I have been coming across a lot of people saying that this was the year of Shani, which is Saturn. And Saturn is kind of a planet that a lot of people are scared of, and it has this bad press which says that it brings a lot of suffering. But it also has a very close connection to the Bhairav Tattva and Kaal Bhairava specifically. And that is why that I feel very, very close to Kaal Bhairava, and he is my ishta dev at this point of time. So it made sense for me to want to do this video for that purpose. But the other reason I actually decided to go ahead and do it, even though I have a very little bit of time I'm actually shooting this video today itself. And I need to kind of finish the editing and all that, finishing up to publish it today, because today is the 31st. And I do want to put this video in this year itself, which is the year of Shani. So it's going to be a little bit of a quick work. But the reason I really wanted to also put it up is because just 2 days back I hit this 4,000 watch hours benchmark for YouTube. YouTube channel, if you want to monetize it, or if you want to put ads and stuff, then we need to hit this number, which is 4,000 watch hours. Watch hours is basically the number of hours that viewers have actually watched my content in the past 1 year. So I just hit 4,000 watch hours, and I felt so excited, because for me, I had kept it as a benchmark. I said that because I'm spending so much time on my YouTube channel, somewhere it has to show, it can't simply be that my videos keep getting 100, 200 views, because then it may not justify the amount of effort I'm putting into this. Especially when I've been sick, even then I've been recording videos and things like that. And of course, I'm propelled by the fact that I want to share certain things, I want to share certain stories. I feel this will help sadhakas like myself. And so I have a lot of inspiration and motivation to do this, but I also want these kind of numerical benchmarks taking place. And I did hit 4,000 watch hours, and I decided, let me get on, do this video, and also thank all of y'all for watching my video and, watching for a few minutes, few hours and stuff. And also a lot of y'all put amazing comments. I'm very thankful for that, because a lot of the comments are actually an eye-opener for me as well. A lot of y'all are sharing personal stories and personal experiences that also I'm very grateful for. And so because of that, I really want to just do this little piece on the year of Shani that just went by. So the beginning of the year itself, in fact January of this year, is when I got this really jolting news. I was in my Chikkabalapur ashram, and what had happened is two of my very close friends all of a sudden disappeared, and I was actually very much in touch with them at that point of time, and all of a sudden both of them were out of touch. They were somewhere, and I found out that one of them had got cancer, and so he was totally undergoing the treatments and kind of in his own zone because of that. And the second friend basically just disappeared out of nowhere. I guess all the signs were there, but I just did not add up, because when you have a friend, you also just assume certain things will be a certain way. So when the person just absolutely disappeared, I was so shocked. So that time itself, I was actually thinking that do I have my Shani Sadesati or something going on, because one of the aspects about Shani is when that Shani dasha they call, when that happens is, which I read in the Agora trilogy by Robert Svoboda. So in those books I had read that one of the salient aspects is that your chhatris, your protection forces, it could be the adults in your family, it could be friends like these, or it could be a very good manager or boss at work. All of a sudden those protection forces just disappear. And that for you is the tough time, because all of a sudden you are left there without those people who you had just been depending on. In a lot of ways you may not even have realized, and all of a sudden they are gone and you are there dealing with it. So I had actually pondered, is it my Shani thing going on or something? Did that just start? Why did these two people at the same time disappear like this? So and at the time, see, I am not like a Jyotish person. It's not like I open the year and start looking which planetary influence is there. It actually is, I think even 2 years back it meant nothing to me, all this stuff. For me, spirituality has always been about, my inner awareness, which for a long period of time did not really include too much in terms of deities or even temples for that matter. I mean, as part of Isha, we go to temples to sit and meditate, so it strengthens our own internal sadhana practice. But I never really thought in terms of these kind of traditional religious forces as I see them, like gods, deities, and now planets like grahas and stuff. But this year has changed a lot, as you would have seen even from the content of this YouTube channel. I started becoming more aware of deity presences. I started looking deeper into deity worship, and then of course the whole Bhairav thing happened. One of the deities that I have started exploring a little bit deeper in the past 2-3 weeks actually has been Dattatreya. And the reason I've been doing it, I have described 2-3 stories in my members only section where I spoke about a few experiences I've had with Bhairav and Dattatreya, and they've been very, very intriguing. So the one deity that in the last 2-3 weeks itself I've really been exploring internally and externally is Dattatreya, and so maybe in the next coming year we may see a lot of Dattatreya videos. If you want to know the story so far and how I even got to him, you can check out the members' content. Last few months a lot of videos have come out saying this was the year of Shani, and I was like, oh really? And I thought back to my January where I really pondered whether some Shani thing had happened. So I think, yes, I can think of this as year of Shani. It was a very difficult year. I had 2 major health problems which I did videos on. One is I had a huge dental episode which was absolutely horrible. And then of course last 1.5 months have been terrible. I was for at least 20-25 days I was pretty much bedridden and almost house arrest. You can't go out. So weak in energy. It was really, really terrible. And now of course I still have some time, like I still have another 3 weeks of Ayurvedic medicines to go, and then we are going to discuss. My thyroid reports I'm going to take out like end of this week, end of next week, and we will see where those levels are to understand whether this thing is getting over or it's still something is still left, which is. So 2 major health issues, and then I did spend 3 months volunteering at the Sadhguru Sannidhi Ashram, which is very important because I think that volunteering period where I was directing my energy and resources and all that stuff towards that volunteering work, and because Sadhguru is my main guru and I do his practices, I do my Shakti Chalan Kriya and my yoga practice is fundamentally my main daily practice, formal practice is coming from him. So this volunteering period was very important, and it was I felt it within myself that it was extremely important for me to get this done. And honestly, I did not have time to spare because that whole dental episode stuff got over and I rushed. I did that Nepal trip, which was also very powerful. But I rushed to Sadhguru Sannidhi, did my 3 months, and right after the 3 months, I'm sick again. Both these sicknesses would not have allowed me to do this volunteer work. So it was very significant that I squeezed this volunteering work within these 3 months, because I did feel from inside this was very important. And of course, the Nepal trip happened in June, July sometime, and the Nepal trip was a huge revelation because of the powerful Bhairav center that Nepal is, and that's when I became aware of the whole Bhairav dance that is going on in my life for the past 10 years, which I was blissfully unaware, not blissfully, but I was unaware of. I was in denial mode. So that's when I started this whole series of video content on Bhairava, because all of that started coming out and I started understanding within myself and I started exploring more consciously about Bhairava, and all of the content got created. And obviously at this point we have to come to the fact that Shani and Kaal Bhairava are closely connected, and I thought, okay, because this is the ending of Year Shani, let me also reflect upon this connection of Kaal Bhairava and Shani, and maybe some scriptural stories are there, let me read it. So as it happens, at least online in English content, nothing much is available about Kaal Bhairava and Shani's scriptural story. Shani's birth stories are there, the whole story about how Surya's wife, she couldn't take the sun's light and brilliance too much. So she left him for some time and she left her shadow in place of her, hoping that the sun, her husband won't notice her, that it is not her and it's a shadow. And as it happened, the husband actually did not notice it until much later, and he ended up having 3 children from this shadow of sun's wife. And the shadow gives birth to 3 children, one of which is Shani. And naturally it is said, because it is this shadow lady who has given birth, the Shani comes out with a certain prakriti. There are more elements into it. Some of the stories mention that this lady was doing very severe Shiva penance to the extent that she forgot to eat also when her pregnancy was going on with Shani. So finally when Shani comes out, it's a very, very brilliant planet, but also a little bit different, almost dark in some ways. So I think a little interesting combination of things. But anyway, so these stories are there, but the story about Kaal Bhairava and Shani isn't there. But I did a little more research and I sat and thought about it, and what makes a lot of sense is this aspect of time or Kaal. See, Shani is considered a planet who keeps giving you the karmic effects of all the way you are living. As time passes and you are doing your activities, Shani is the one that will keep doling out the effects of your karma. And so it is considered a time-bound planet. The way it's like a person who is going about life normally as a normal common person. They are influenced by all the various circumstances. As time changes, they will get impacted. Good, bad will happen. As good time comes, bad time comes. So that person is completely surrounded by the influence, by what we call the samsara and the circular life, that life of repetition, life and death, life and death. So we are still in that repeating life, and so at that point that particular person is completely under the influence of all the various circumstances. And so then Shani plays a big role over there, because Shani is doling out all the effects. There is no scope of them leaving. They are stuck in the good and bad cycles. So sometimes the cycle is good also, like a lot of good things happen in life, but you are nowhere close to liberation. You're completely drowned in more for the good stuff. So you're still stuck in that circle, but then you elevate a little bit. What is the elevation? Elevation is that little bit of vairagya comes in. And so then you're not that much impacted by all these happenings of time, like all that stuff. So then also the influence of Shani relaxes a little bit, because you have vairagya, so even if bad stuff comes, you'll go through. with a reasonable amount of equanimity. Obviously, if something much worse happens, you will still get shaken up because you're just a little bit elevated. And then, of course, you will get much elevated where you have a much stronger vairagya taking place. You have probably some sadhana has to happen for the vairagya to happen, whichever type of sadhana it may be. So then that sadhana also becomes like your boat and it's carrying you through. So then you are much more elevated from the Shani influence, and then you are actually going closer to the transcendence of time where you can go beyond time. In which case you are going into the zone of Kaal Bhairava, because Kaal Bhairava is about... So one way that they say is that, the Shiva takes a form which kills time. I think it's just a way that appeals to the larger mass of people because they like this imagery of Shiva killing time. So then they will say, okay, Kaal Bhairava is where time gets killed. So this person that we are talking about gets completely elevated, so they are beyond time. I don't like this violent iconography, so I like looking at it from the perspective that Kaal Bhairava is the aspect where the consciousness is beyond time. So what happens is that this sadhaka then already has some strong vairagya, but at some point they just transcend time altogether, in which case they become in the land of Kaal Bhairava. And so if you look at from the perspective of the evolution of the person, and it's a sadhaka because it is your sadhana which gives you the ability to keep getting more and more full of vairagya, and then the clutches of time and that whole cyclical life gets looser and looser. So then we move from Shani towards Kaal Bhairava, and hence it actually makes sense that if we consider Kaal Bhairava to be the guru of Shani, because if you're in this phase and then you kind of go higher, then it's that higher and elevated place. So I think this makes sense. When I started looking at Shani and Kaal Bhairava, while I could not find the scriptural stories, but I could find a lot of Jyotish mentions. And a lot of Jyotish is talking about Kaal Bhairava and Shani like some kind of like all the negative effects of Kaal Bhairava or Shani in your life, like that's how they are talking. And what I realized when reading this is very similar to how Ayurveda talks about the doshas like Vata, Pitta, Kapha. See, what is happening is Vata, Pitta, Kapha are considered the three forces, the three fundamental forces of your physical body and health. So it is not being considered as something that is all negative, or Kapha will cause these problems, Vata will cause these problems. No. If Kapha is extremely balanced and strong, then it will cause really good qualities within yourself. It's when it becomes imbalanced that it goes and causes the negative qualities. Same with Vata and same with Pitta. And so, and then what happens is there is a time when through sadhana, if you just are able to really bring your body in a very, very good condition, then these three forces actually, the highest form of these three forces are actually, for Vata it is prana, for Pitta it is tejas, and for Kapha it is ojas. Ojas is probably the one you've heard of, where you do a lot of meditation practice and these very, the bliss energy gets created called ojas, and it is very protecting. It's a very, very almost non-physical kind of aspect. It's not non-physical, but kind of, very, very ethereal and all that. And so in the same way, like in Jyotish, I think they're doing the same thing. They're looking at Kaal Bhairava Shani and looking at the most imbalanced form. Like you have a presence of Kaal Bhairava, but it's completely negative or imbalanced actually. And then you see this is the bad effects. But then the moment it gets elevated, the highest forms are actually very, very high. Like Kaal Bhairava, we are just considering like the high form of Shiva himself. And Shani also obviously is very high, and that's why he's also deified, as a deity is considered. So this was a good understanding for me, and it was interesting because through this exploration I also peeked a little bit into Jyotish, because I have been getting a little bit interested in Jyotish simply because of two reasons. One is that Ayurveda moves a little bit into it, and second is because somebody said, so in English language we keep thinking of Jyotish as astrology. So we look at astronomy and then we think of astrology as two separate things, because I'm very much interested in astronomy. As a kid I wanted to become an astronaut, and I am really interested and in some ways clued in, though not too knowledgeable, but reasonably good, like definitely above average in terms of astronomical understanding. And I have spent a lot of my childhood geeking over books of astronomy, space missions, and lot of stuff like that. Astrology was always out of this, but I understand that within the Indic system, they never spoke about these two things as different. And that was a very, very big eye-opener for me, and that got me very intrigued, because I said, okay, that then makes me very interested, because I'm already interested in astronomy, and it makes sense to me that if like a yogic person is studying astronomy or the planets and stuff, they're not simply going to look at it from a cold scientific perspective of something that's outside of us. They are definitely going to consider how it is impacting us, even if in the most nuanced and tiny ways. And so that then makes it, it just perked my interest in this whole field a lot. And so I have also been thinking of, I don't know where my kundali is, it was lying around, but it's misplaced. We never put, as a family, we never put much importance to it. Though even Jains do match kundalis when they marry, a lot of them. We as a family, I didn't care much. I think it was more like a routine done during a marriage process, just to ensure that some major prediction doesn't come through from anyone, but it was never like a big aspect. And anyway, since I'm not married or anything, it never much got done. It was kept somewhere in the house, it was lying around. So I'm thinking of digging it up and just kind of getting some clue what's going on in my kundali anyways. But so yeah, this was my video on Shani, Kaal Bhairava, and just this year. Overall, it was a pretty difficult year, but I am pretty okay with it, because I realized that after each of those episodes or hits that I got, I actually did come out stronger, definitely, and it had a huge impact on me, and I went through it in a very interesting way. For me, it was a validation of all this sadhana and the spiritual. My life is very, very focused towards spiritual stuff from many years actually. So it kind of was a validation of that, because the way I went through a lot of these problems was really good, my personal assessment, and I came out stronger at the end of it. So it did feel like purifying fire. And that is what they do say about Shani also and Kaal Bhairava, that they do put you through a fire, but they also give you the strength to, if our mind is reasonably in control, regulated, I like to call it, if the mind is reasonably regulated and not running around amok like a crazy thing, then then those trials and tribulations that come, the difficulties that come, they do shape you up pretty well. While I was doing this research, I came across some interesting information or scriptural mentions of the planet Mars, or Angarka, and I'll share about it in another video. Specifically, we are talking about Mars because the next year, which is 2025, is said to be a year of Mars, which is gonna be interesting. As you can understand from his other name, Angarka. Angarka, even in Gujarati, the same word Angarka is basically like a burning coal. So, you can think what it means, a burning coal. It's quite different what the stories are from in terms of the Western god of war, which is Mars. It's a little bit quite different. So let's get into that in the next video.